Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. I hope you have recovered from last night, from Slammiversary. What a show. What a show, it must be said. Now, if you missed anything from Slammiversary last night, be sure to check out the watch-along we did. Be sure to check out the post-show reaction stream as well that we did. But it was a show full of just everything, wasn't it? It was a good card, I think, going into it. And a lot of people had expectations about who was going to show up, who was going to return, who was going to make their debut, of course, the main event. There was certainly a lot of surprises people didn't see coming. So I thought what we would do today is really go into the surprise names. Again, we mentioned this in the post-show last night, but now that we've had a few hours to digest it all and some stories have come out about this, specifically about some certain returns last night, especially the big one, the show closing surprise of Jay White coming in to Slammiversary, to Impact Wrestling from New Japan Pro Wrestling, as part of the working relationship between the two companies. There's some information about that. So what I wanted to do is break down these surprises, returns, debuts that we all saw last night at Slammiversary. So a real exciting time for Impact Wrestling, no doubt about it. I think Impact Wrestling absolutely knocked it out of the park. It has to be said. I thought that the fans returned and it was a real special show. A real special show. Definitely felt like the beginning of a new chapter for Impact Wrestling. And now as we're officially on the road to Bound for Glory in October, it makes you wonder, what on earth do Impact Wrestling have up their sleeve? What do they have planned? Because they've got a lot of new names that are going to be working with Impact Wrestling going forward. Looks to be some working relationships with some other promotions as well going forward. So a really exciting time for Impact Wrestling. So let's get into the surprises. Spoilers ahead, of course, even though there's no way you would have been able to avoid these spoilers on social media, YouTube. They've been everywhere. Let's start off talking about the big one, Jay White. Yes, the leader of the Bullet Club, Jay White, appeared at the end of Slammiversary last night after Kenny Omega defeated Sami Callihan in that excellent main event for the Impact World Championship. No disqualification match. Omega celebrating with Don Callis and the new Impact World Tag Team Champions, the Good Brothers, Gallows and Karl. And suddenly the lights go out. The Bullet Club logo shows up, which was certainly a surprise. But an even bigger surprise was the emergence of the leader of the Bullet Club, the never open weight champion himself, Switchblade Jay White, is in Impact Wrestling. It was a huge story, a huge surprise. Nobody saw it coming. Certainly, again, nobody saw it coming. I thought that was just going to be the closing of the show, considering that, again, when the lights went out last night, and you're thinking, right, they're going to do a surprise, but who on earth is it going to be? Who on earth is it going to be? Because you're racking your brain thinking of the WWE names that could show up, and you're thinking, nobody right now is available. There's a lot of 90-day non-compete clauses going on, especially as well. Those reports had come out previous to Slammiversary saying that there wasn't going to be any New Japan Pro Wrestling talent at the show. Well, that was wrong. That was certainly wrong, because there was a big New Japan Pro Wrestling influence. Certainly very surprising. So, as I mentioned, Jay White comes out. He's carrying the Never Openweight Championship. Omega and the Good Brothers responded to this. They were very standoffish, especially Kenny Omega was very standoffish of Jay White. Didn't really know what to make of him. The Good Brothers and Don Callis put up the Too Sweet sign, motioning for Jay White to join them. Of course, they were former members of the Bullet Club themselves. It was maybe a bit of a Japanese and United States reunion of sides of the Bullet Club. But before White could do anything, someone came running down to the ring. You could hear D'Lo Brown go, "Whoa," and then the show immediately went off the air with no resolution. Now, it doesn't look like, again, we were speculating on this last night. I think there were some people wondering if it was a botch, or some people wondering if it was a cliffhanger. It looks to be like it was a cliffhanger. I think no reports have come out saying there was a production botch or anything like that. So it has been confirmed it's a cliffhanger. As I mentioned last night in the post-show stream, I know a lot of people were like, I hate that, and that was my initial reaction. I think it's kind of just the culture nowadays, though. I think, cliffhangers back in the day for any television program, whatever show it was, not even pro wrestling, but a cliffhanger ends and everyone would go, "Oh God, I can't wait next week. What a great way to do it." Nowadays, we've kind of become conditioned because of the Netflixes, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, that when there's a cliffhanger, bang, you go right next to the next episode, right? Because it's already there, it's on demand. Thinking about the ratings that for Impact Wrestling that haven't been so good for them recently, it's a wise decision. I think it's a very wise decision, and I guess, look, some people didn't like the cliffhanger, some people weren't a fan of the cliffhanger. I wasn't initially, but thinking about the business side of things, I think it does make a lot of sense. Now, If you want to know what happened when the show went off the air, it's been widely reported. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful, he was in the building, several appearances by him at Slammiversary last night. He reported that David Finlay and Juice Robinson came down to the ring to attack Jay White, but White hit the Blade Runner on Juice and escaped before anything else happened. Now, of course, Jay White is actually scheduled to be part of the New Japan Pro Wrestling Resurgence event that is going to be taking place in Los Angeles on August 14th. Actually, Impact did promote this during Slammiversary last night, and, of course, he's defending the Never Openweight Championship against David Finlay. So maybe that's why, I guess that makes sense as to why FinJuice would come out and immediately go after Jay White, because of course they've got the match in August. So from a New Japan point of view, that makes sense. There's some other news coming from Fightful Select about this as well. Again, this is why I wanted to do the video today, because there's so much news being reported about all of these surprises last night at Slammiversary. Now, according to Fightful Select, according to Sean Ross Sapp, this is on their Patreon service, be sure to check that out. They are saying, quote, Jay White was a closely guarded secret, even to those in the company. Internal run sheets only had a pull-apart brawl listed as closing the show. So they went full WWE in the sense that they didn't want this spoiler getting out. They had a lot of spoilers got out earlier on in the day, it must be said. The names such as FinJuice was reported to be there backstage. Other names were reported to be there as well. So those spoilers certainly got out. A lot of people expected the names like Chelsea Green, etc. Nobody, I mean nobody, saw Jay White coming. Nobody saw that coming. That shocked everyone. Impact did a really, really good job in keeping that a surprise for everyone watching, and man, it was a good one. Man, it was a good one. And like I mentioned before, it's fascinating now, because there are so many questions. There are so many questions coming out of Slammiversary last night as to what does this mean for Jay White and Impact Wrestling. There's no way, and I don't mean no way Jose, we'll talk about him later on, but there's no way that Jay White doesn't show up at Slammiversary last night and he's not having a match. He's obviously having a match at some point. When would that match be? Logic would suggest it's going to be Bound for Glory. If they can do a main event of Bound for Glory that is Jay White versus Kenny Omega for the Impact World Championship, that's a big, big deal. Again, I know some people would say, but there's no Impact Wrestling talent involved in that. You've got an AEW wrestler facing a New Japan wrestler for the Impact World Championship. That is very true. That is very true, and I think that would be something that Impact would be conscious of. But look, Impact Wrestling does have a working relationship with New Japan, and I think maybe Impact might look at it and say, look, the Kenny Omega Championship reign, the Kenny Omega crossover, has been relatively successful for Impact Wrestling in terms of the ratings initially, not so much right now, but initially, and maybe they look at it as, look, Omega versus White's a huge match. If we can promote that and get that on an Impact show, that's a big deal. If Omega drops the championship to, say, Jay White, and Jay White holds the championship for a few months, again, that's good for Impact and that's good for New Japan. From a New Japan point of view, we know the situation right now over there in Japan, and it's not great. Obviously, the Olympics start later next week, and the country's in a state of emergency until the Olympics are over because the COVID situation isn't great. And there's been a lot of reports about frustrations, particularly from the foreign talent in New Japan Pro Wrestling, saying that it's out of control and they want to go back home and they want to stay home. Maybe New Japan are looking at a situation whereby they say, look, they're running events right now in America. Maybe now is the time to really double down on our American presence. As I mentioned, you've got the match and the event of New Japan Pro Wrestling Resurgence in August. They know they want to promote that. There are going to be fans at that event. There are going to be fans at New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong tapings as well soon. So maybe New Japan are just looking at this saying, look, the foreign talent that we have, Jay White, FinJuice, etc., whilst they're over in America, whilst we're having fans return to events in America, let's make it a big deal. And I think Impact might look at that and work with New Japan and say, look, we'll make Jay White, because he's such a top-tier talent, we'll make him the world champion if we can promote a Jay White versus Kenny Omega match inside of an Impact Wrestling ring. We just want a commitment that Jay White's willing to hold the Impact World Championship for 3 to 6 months. It's a big deal. It's a big, big deal. And I'm sure AEW are looking at this going, can we get a bit of the Jay White action as well? Can we get Jay White versus Kenny Omega? Can that happen in an AEW ring? What can we do? So there are so many questions. I think that Impact Wrestling did a great job keeping this surprise a secret. This was the big one. People are going to be talking about Bullet Club versus the Elite as well. There are so many questions left unanswered right now, and that isn't a bad thing at all. As I mentioned, I think people's reaction to the cliffhanger last night initially was, oh, I can't believe I've got to wait, but it's a great tease. It's a great tease, and people are already going to be questioning what is going to happen. What are the plans going forward? We don't know plans. We just know it was a really closely guarded secret, and Impact did a great job keeping it secret. Now, speaking of New Japan, one job that they didn't keep a good secret was FinJuice. FinJuice, of course, they returned last night in an impromptu match. You had Shearer and Madman Fulton come out later on in the show. They were shoving each other in the ring. Scott D'Amore comes out and says, well, since you're here, since you're in the ring, let's have a match. I have some opponents for you. Out come FinJuice, of course, former New Japan Pro Wrestling Tag Team Champions, IWGP Tag Team Champions, former Impact World Champions as well. We last saw them on the episode of Impact right after Impact Under Siege, where they lost the championships to Violent by Design. After that, they said that they were going to go back to Japan, but they would be back at some point in Impact Wrestling. That is last night. It would suggest, in the same vein that Jay White's going to probably be part of the latest set of Impact Wrestling television tapings going forward, it would suggest that FinJuice are also going to be part of the Impact Wrestling television tapings going forward as well. I think they're going to try and obviously play up this match that Jay White's going to have with David Finlay at the New Japan Resurgence event in August. So I think they're going to be doing some promotion with that. I think that's the plan there. Obviously, they have history with the Good Brothers, who are the Impact Tag Team Champions once again. FinJuice own like 3 victories over the Good Brothers. If anything, it was surprising that the Good Brothers won the Impact Tag Team Championship last night, because they've done nothing but lose on pay-per-view this year during Impact Wrestling events. So that was certainly surprising, but there's lots of things they can do in Impact Wrestling now. Obviously, they can pick up a feud with Violent by Design. Violent by Design aren't the tag team champions, though. They can re-pick up a feud with the Good Brothers. They can obviously pick up a feud with Jay White. That looks like that's going to happen in Impact Wrestling as well, but wasn't so much of a surprise considering it was Fightful Select. They broke this story before Slammiversary last night that FinJuice were backstage. Again, when those reports about foreign talent being specifically upset or unhappy with the situation in Japan, one of the names mentioned was David Finlay. His father, Fitz, during an interview, openly discussed that David Finlay was a bit frustrated with the situation with New Japan at the moment. He was considering his options. His contract's coming up with New Japan relatively soon. I don't know off the top of my head when it is, but relatively soon that contract's coming up. And the discussion was that he was considering options based in North America, whether it was with WWE, whether it was with AEW, whether it was, re-signing with New Japan but only working in the United States, whether it was Impact Wrestling. He had a ton of options available to him. So this one wasn't so much of a surprise, but it's exciting because I think Impact need the boost in the tag team division. I'll be honest with you. I think they need tag teams. The tag team division has been quite hurt over the course of the last year, losing the likes of the North. Obviously, the Motor City Machine Guns aren't competing anymore because of Alex Shelley's commitments in his day job. They lost other names like Rhino Skirn. Losing the North was a big deal. And for a while, as I mentioned, the Good Brothers were kind of off doing their own thing with AEW and New Japan as well. So they're needed. They are absolutely needed. And whilst it wasn't much of a surprise, it was a welcome one to be sure. A little Star Wars reference there for you. Now, this one was definitely a surprise. Thunder Rosa. Yes, Thunder Rosa was revealed to be the mystery opponent for Deonna Purrazzo in the Knockouts Championship match. Now, going into the show, it was announced that Purrazzo would be facing a mystery opponent. Lots of people were speculating on names, whether it was Mickie James, we'll touch on her in a second, the Iconics, Chelsea Green. Of course, we know that Chelsea Green returned earlier on in the night, but it was revealed to be none other than NWA wrestler Thunder Rosa, former NWA World Woman Champion. Thunder Rosa was answered the open challenge to face Deonna Purrazzo. Now, she did lose. They had a match that went about 10 minutes. It was a good match, decent match. I would have preferred to see it go a bit longer, and I hope they do a rematch in the future at some point. Now, once again, Fightful Select has some interesting information when it comes to Thunder Rosa and how this whole thing came together in terms of her facing Deonna Purrazzo at Slammiversary. This is what the report by Fightful says, quote, Thunder Rosa appeared at Impact Wrestling Slammiversary to take on Deonna Purrazzo as her mystery opponent, and there's a lot that went into it. Fightful have been told that the deal was done about a month ahead of time, and this won't be the end of the NWA doing some work with Impact Wrestling. We spoke about this a couple of days ago, speaking that there was a beginning of a working relationship being formed with Impact Wrestling and the NWA. The two companies were said to be on very good terms, certainly the best terms they've probably ever been on, especially in the Billy Corgan years, and that began with the Kylie Ray situation of Pat Kenny, Simon Diamond, kind of building up and beginning the dialogue and negotiation process of Kylie Ray being released by Impact Wrestling and then moving to the NWA. So, as I mentioned, they're told that the deal was done about a month ahead of time. This won't be the end of the working relationship between Impact and the NWA. As mentioned previously, as I mentioned, Impact Wrestling let Kylie Ray out of her deal to pursue interest in NWA, and Impact sources to Fightful had put over the working relationship they were maintaining with other companies. Now, some people were slightly confused about all of this, and Fightful has cleared up this confusion. Thunder Rosa is still expected to work AEW shows and remains under contract to the NWA through the end of 2021. So Thunder Rosa is still going to appear on AEW programming going forward. She's still under contract to the NWA as well until the end of the year. I think by the end of the year she'll probably sign a full-time deal with AEW. But who knows? If this NWA deal allows her to work dates with Impact Wrestling, with the NWA, with AEW, she might be interested in that. I think AEW is going to be in prime position to sign Thunder Rosa, but I think also they're going to be looking at a situation where they say, look, Thunder Rosa is certainly going to have negotiating leverage, because she's going to say, well, my NWA deal allows me to work with you and other companies. I'll sign a full-time deal with AEW, but I still want conditions in there that I can work with Impact. I want conditions that I can work with the NWA or with Stardom in Japan or whatever. I want those conditions met, because that's what she's got right now. I kind of pitched and freestyled last night, and I don't know this to be the case. I'll be honest with you, I don't know this to be completely accurate, but I kind of got the impression, and we'll touch on Mickie James in a second, because of course she made her return to Impact Wrestling last night. I kind of freestyled that maybe it was a case last night where it was the NWA saying to Impact, you can have Thunder Rosa for Slammiversary to face off against Deonna Purrazzo. In exchange, in return, we want Deonna Purrazzo for the NWA Empower pay-per-view, which looks like they're going to get because of the post-show angle. So Thunder Rosa being in Impact Wrestling was exciting. I don't know what this means going forward, though. It must be stated. I get the impression, for instance, with Jay White and with FinJuice and their appearances last night, you get the impression they're going to be seen quite a lot on Impact Wrestling programming going forward. Thunder Rosa last night, you get the impression that it might have been a one and done appearance with Impact Wrestling going forward. Again, I know they've said in that report that the working relationship with the NWA and Impact Wrestling is going to continue, but I kind of feel at the moment, and I might be wrong, that this was a kind of, you can have Thunder Rosa for Slammiversary, we want Deonna Purrazzo for NWA Empower. And that kind of might be that similar situation. I don't know, though. I don't know. That's what I kind of felt with that one, but time will only tell. I hope to see more of her. I'm a huge Thunder Rosa fan. I think she was part of the best women's match in AEW history in an unsanctioned lights out match against Britt Baker. And yeah, I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of her work. I've been a huge fan of her work since the days of NWA Power the first time prior to the pandemic. So really glad to see her in AEW. Really glad to see her in Impact. It was a welcome surprise last night. As I mentioned, my only criticism would be that I would have hoped that we see the match again that goes a little bit longer, because I think 10 minutes was just a bit too short for Purrazzo and Thunder Rosa, especially the match that they were trying to tell. You know, you could tell in that one it was a very scientific kind of method that they were going for. Obviously, the Deonna Purrazzo matches are very scientific, working the arm, getting in the Fujiwara arm lock, and the and all that kind of stuff. But you know, I really enjoyed it. I must say, I really enjoyed it, and hopefully it's not the last of Thunder Rosa we've seen in Impact Wrestling. Again, it might be. It depends on how strong this working relationship is with the NWA. Speaking of the NWA, though, Mickie James. Now, a lot of people thought that Mickie James was going to appear as Deonna Purrazzo's mystery opponent last night. She didn't, but after Deonna Purrazzo defeated Thunder Rosa clean, by the way, completely clean in the middle of the ring. I mean, we're talking cleaner than clean. There was no interference, no shenanigans, no nothing. Deonna Purrazzo won clean. After the match, Mickie James comes out, marks her return to Impact Wrestling after, gosh, what, 6 years, something like that? Her last appearance inside of an Impact Wrestling ring around like 2015, that period of time, might be a little bit before that. Anyway, Mickie James comes out, big reception, hardcore country, all that kind of stuff. Comes out, puts over Deonna Purrazzo, says, you know, you're one of the best workers in the world right now, and says that, reminds everyone that she's the executive producer of the NWA Empower All-Women's Pay-Per-View coming up later this year. Personally invites the Knockouts champion Deonna Purrazzo to appear at the event. Deonna Purrazzo says, while I appreciate you respecting me and telling me how great I am, you're actually disrespecting me right now because you're taking away my moment. You're showing me disrespect. She says to Mickie James, take your trash bag and leave. Referring to, of course, Trash Bag Gate, which, if you're not familiar, is when Mickie James was released by WWE earlier this year. She had her belongings sent to her in a trash bag with her name on it. she broke the story on social media. It led to Mark Carrano being fired by WWE in terms of their talent relations department. It actually led to public apologies by both Triple H and Stephanie McMahon on social media because it was that bad PR for the company. And Mickie James, by the way, wasn't the only one to receive that. She said multiple people came out. I think Chelsea Green, Lana, etc., Gail Kim, all came out and said, yeah, that happened to me when I was released. Mickie James then revealed that happened to her the first time she was released in 2010 as well. So they've been doing this for years at this point to the female talent, which is a disgrace, frankly. So Mickie James comes out and then puts over Deonna Purrazzo. Deonna Purrazzo says, take your trash bag and leave. Mickie James wasn't happy with this and just nails, in high heels, by the way, nails a kick to the head of Deonna Purrazzo, who then leaves the arena. So I would think this sets up something for the NWA Empower pay-per-view. I don't know, to answer people's questions, if it's going to lead to Mickie James wrestling in Impact. Logic would suggest, and I don't know, logic would suggest that Impact would want to do Deonna Purrazzo versus Mickie James inside of an Impact Wrestling ring. I could see the timeline being this. I know Mickie James said she wasn't going to wrestle at the NWA Empower event because she was going to be too busy behind the scenes being the executive producer, wherever. I think she will wrestle. This is what I think will happen. I think we have Mickie James versus Deonna Purrazzo at NWA Empower for the Knockouts Championship. I think that takes place after Triple Mania. I might be wrong because, of course, Deonna Purrazzo is booked in a title versus title match at Triple Mania. But I think that they have the match at NWA Empower for the Knockouts Championship. I could see a scenario where Mickie James wins. Mickie James wins the Knockouts Championship at NWA Empower. They then do the rematch at Bound for Glory in October. Deonna Purrazzo and Mickie James inside of an Impact Wrestling ring. And that's where Deonna Purrazzo wins back the Knockouts Championship. I could see that happening. I don't know if that's the plan. That's me speculating. That's me trying to read the tea leaves, as it were. But there's definitely something happening in terms of the NWA and Impact Wrestling. There's definitely something happening with Deonna Purrazzo appearing on the NWA Empower event. And hopefully we're going to see Mickie James wrestle inside of an Impact Wrestling ring at least one more time. That's the hope anyway. Now, speaking of knockouts, Chelsea Green, the former knockouts champion, the former Laurel Van Ness, returned to Impact Wrestling last night. As many people expected, this is probably the worst kept secret, to be honest, that Chelsea Green was going to be returning to Impact. As soon as they said this past week on Impact Wrestling that Matt Cardona was going to have a mystery tag team partner, a mystery female tag team partner to face Brian Myers and Tenille Dashwood, you just knew. You just knew it was going to be Chelsea Green. The only issue going into it was that it was too obvious, right? It was too obvious that maybe it won't be Chelsea Green, but it was. It was Chelsea Green, and the only thing people were saying going into it is, well, Chelsea Green, of course, she appeared at the Ring of Honor Best in the World pay-per-view last weekend, and people said, well, has she signed a deal with Ring of Honor? Does this prevent her from appearing for Impact Wrestling? What's going on? She also had a broken arm, and she's doing commentary for the Women's Championship Tournament in Ring of Honor. She's also participating in it as well. There was a bit of confusion there. Now, the report came out last week anyway that Chelsea Green hadn't signed a contract with Ring of Honor, so she wasn't exclusive to the company or anything like that, which right then to me said she was going to appear for Impact Wrestling. There was no doubt about that. So her and Matt Cardona won the match last night. She actually got the victory, hitting the Unprettier on Tenille Dashwood for the victory. Now, going back to Fightful, because they have a ton of information about this, I think this is why Sean Ross Sapp was in Nashville last night, to be honest with you. He reported, quote, Fightful has learned some more in regards to Chelsea Green joining Impact Wrestling. Fightful have been told that her deal to come in was worked out around the same time that her plans to go to Ring of Honor came together. As of now, there is no full-time contract signed between Chelsea Green with Ring of Honor or Impact Wrestling, so she hasn't signed a deal with either promotion right now. She hasn't signed a deal with Ring of Honor. She hasn't signed a deal with Impact Wrestling. Fightful have also been told that both companies were aware that she would be working for the other company. So there's no issues right now of ROH being like, I can't believe she's working for Impact, I didn't know that, or Impact being shocked that she showed up at the Best in the World pay-per-view last weekend. There's no drama or anything like that. Both companies were fully aware, and she hasn't signed a deal with either company. As we spoke about before here on the channel, recent weeks, and this is a report by Fightful, it's also something we've spoken about here on the channel, that several people in the power of both companies, whether it's Ring of Honor or Impact Wrestling, have put over how well each company have been working with each other recently, saying the synergy between Impact and ROH has never been better, which opens a lot of doors in the future for things like Chelsea Green and for other names, possibly, your EC3s, possibly Danhausen coming into Impact Wrestling, and some of the Impact talent going to work for ROH as well. The synergy and the working relationship between ROH and Impact Wrestling arguably has never been better. So now it's looking like Impact Wrestling, as we spoke about before, has working relationships with AEW, with New Japan Pro Wrestling, with AAA, with Ring of Honor, with the NWA, and possibly MLW going forward as well. So a really exciting time for Impact Wrestling. A lot of working relationships, and Chelsea Green's back in Impact Wrestling, as we expected. The Knockouts division is looking very, very strong. We're talking maybe Thunder Rosa, Mickie James, Chelsea Green, and maybe some more to come in as well. Of course, you've got the post-Slammiversary television tapings that are happening over the course of the next few days as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we have some surprising names that show up there as well. Another name, this one kind of came up the radar, No Way Jose. Former WWE star No Way Jose made his Impact Wrestling debut last night. Now, he's just going under the name No Way. They did say No Way or No Way Jose. I don't know how they're going to try and get around it, or they're just calling him No Way. He's got the same gimmick that he had in WWE when he comes out dancing. He's got the conga line and all that kind of stuff. People in the conga line included Alicia Edwards, Johnny Bravo, Johnny Swinger. They're looking like they're going to continue that gimmick. He was Fallah's partner in the Impact Tag Team title match after TJP had to pull out last night. So looks like No Way Jose is going to be with Impact Wrestling going forward. No news yet on what his situation is with Impact. I don't know if it's a case of him signing a contract with the company. I don't know if it's a case of him just working a couple of dates with Impact Wrestling. That's very possible as well, considering how Impact Wrestling works their deals. But No Way Jose is going to be an Impact. I'm indifferent on it. You know, no disrespect to the guy, but obviously the issue that he had in WWE was that the gimmick, there is a very clear ceiling to that gimmick, that you can only go so far. The positive, I suppose, with No Way Jose in Impact Wrestling is that Impact are open to doing comedy stuff. Their comedy stuff is really off the wall. I mean, especially if you look at some of the content they've produced in the last year or so, when you're talking about Wrestle House, or you're talking about the Who Shot Johnny Bravo situation, or all that kind of stuff, or the wedding of Rosemary and Johnny Bravo, all that kind of stuff. They love that. Tommy Dreamer was a big creative force behind that, and you just know, I mean, recently you've had it with, was it Swingers Palace or Swingers Place, when he's doing the poker and all that kind of stuff. They love it. They Impact Wrestling love that kind of stuff, and maybe they look at No Way Jose and go, you know, we do comedy stuff, we do off-the-wall stuff, he would fit right in. And again, I don't know the situation as opposed to his contract right now, if he signed one with Impact. A name people didn't really see coming, maybe a name people didn't really... I don't think anyone was desperate to see No Way Jose in Impact Wrestling, but look, it was a welcome surprise. It was a nice one. So we'll see what happens going forward with that. Finally, a name that we didn't actually physically see appear on the show, but it was teased that the former WWE superstar Aiden English is coming to Impact Wrestling as well. Now, he didn't appear on camera at any point last night, but a vignette heralding the debut of the former Aiden English aired during last night's Impact Wrestling Slammiversary pay-per-view. Now, in the vignette, as you can see on the screen there, an unseen person was shown writing the words "Long Live the King" on a piece of poster board. After writing out that phrase, the word drama was hastily written before King. Now, of course, Aiden English used the nickname Drama King at various points during his career. I think it might even still be on his Twitter handle. Now, it's not clear as to what name Aiden English is going to be using going forward in Impact Wrestling. In his indie appearances following his 2020 release, he wrestled under his real name of Matt Rewalt. I'm terrible pronouncing those names. Of course, he was released by WWE in April of 2020 as part of those budget cuts associated with the pandemic. It's on the channel somewhere, so you can be sure to check it out. I remember doing a video saying that I thought Aiden English would be a perfect fit for Impact Wrestling at some point last year. It might have been in the summer. Might have been around the summer last year. Now, I referenced that I thought he would be a really good name for Impact, not just because of his in-ring work, which is solid, but I thought he would be a great work in terms of a broadcaster. This was at the time where we still had Josh Matthews and Madison Rayne on commentary. Now, I think Matt Striker and D'Lo Brown do a very good job on commentary. They're a massive upgrade, frankly, to Josh Matthews and Madison Rayne. But I felt that Aiden English would be a great fit for Impact because, again, he's got great work in the ring. He's very good on the mic. He was the hype man for Rusev and Rusev Day for a long period of time. But also, he's a great broadcaster. He was a color commentator for 205 Live during that edition of NXT SmackDown after the Crown Jewel fiasco in 2019. He actually did the first hour of SmackDown on Fox. on commentary because he's a really good commentator. He's very good. He's got a great voice for it. He's got great insight. So I don't know what he's going to be doing with Impact. I don't know if he's going to be a wrestler. I don't know if he's going to be a manager. I don't know if he's going to be a broadcaster. He could be all three. I think he's a multi-tooled guy, and I think he's a very talented guy. So I'm fascinated to see what he's going to do with Impact going forward, and great to see it. I think he's a great talent. So that's exciting as well. And look, as I mentioned, that was just last night. That was just last night, and I think at the television tapings over the course of the next few days, we're going to see far more surprises. So this is a very exciting time for Impact Wrestling going forward. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all the surprises last night at Slammiversary for Impact Wrestling? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved with the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash the like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Got the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.